Oh, man, I closed it. There it is. Okay. All right, we are recording in 2 places. This is Pam Gallagher. We are gone live. We're on Adobe. We have people online and in-house. This is Midwest School of Astrology. And these are the astrological energies of the times. That's the topic of today. So says Mindy. I do the talking. Mindy does the running, organizing. So today is August 29th, 2021. We've had a lot happening today. If anybody's listening to the news, they happen in time. But the sun is in Virgo today. That's what that says. This is the moon. There's another method of looking at the chart, which would bring it to here. So you can see in symbols. It's the same chart, but it gives you all the symbols. Sun's in Virgo, moon is in Gemini, and then what sign is rising? What's on the horizon right now? And it's Capricorn. So this is what's going on at this moment in time. The moon, when you talk about a person's chart, now I have a book, Becoming Your Sun Sign, talking about we're going from the moon to the sun when we talk about an individual's growth. The moon is your soul. We're going toward our growth, which is our sun sign. We really are not our sun sign. We'd like to think it, and on a good day we are. On a bad day we're not. So the ascendant, whatever's rising, is how we show to the world. However, what we're looking at here is called mundane astrology, and it's for the world. And so for this particular exercise, we're going to be talking not about individuals, but more about the world. And so Earth is in the center, and we're looking out at the planets against the zodiac belt. It is geocentrically based, it's Earth-based, and the Earth is rotating on its axis. Therefore, another sign's coming over the horizon every 2 hours. So the rising sign is significant. Okay. So today, and obviously what's going on, and I don't know if any of you have been listening to YouTube. I have about 4, I think, recordings this year of YouTube. I don't know. We started with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction that was so intense, and then we had the Saturn Uranus. This is the planet Saturn. It's an H squaring Uranus, which looks like a thermometer. Now, each planet is an archetype and has its own energy and its own behavior pattern, like a personality. Saturn is the planet of structure and rules. It rules Capricorn, and its structure rules boundaries, control. And it's stay with the plan. Stay in the box. Uranus is the rebel. Uranus creates chaos, electricity, and blows everything out. And that's its job. The moon is our emotion. Mercury is communication. Venus is pleasure, blah, blah, blah. But Saturn, now every planet has a different timing of orbits. So Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars are flying around every year. They're changing quickly. We don't pay too much attention, It's there, it's gone. But Jupiter has a 12-year orbit, and it's in a sign. Jupiter's the 4th for a year. And then Saturn is 29 years. Uranus is 84 years. Neptune, 165 years. And Pluto is 248 years in orbit around. So obviously they move at different speeds. So Saturn tends to move anywhere from 7 to 12 degrees in a year, but it retrogrades back and forth. Uranus, 84 years, 12 signs, about 4 degrees a year. So, it's going to ratchet back and forth over one. And so whatever those degrees are is really getting hit. Well, Uranus happens to be in Taurus for these 7 years. Saturn is moved into Aquarius. They are what we call, for all you people that know some astrology, squared. And so I've been talking about on YouTube the fact that when Saturn came up to square Uranus, we knew that we were going to have the solid Saturn rules conflicting and us breaking, hitting with change and breaking loose. And so, however, I can tell you that nobody really knew, including me, exactly what that was going to look like. I mean, all astrologers looked and said, "Ooh, this is significant because the whole world's feeling it. It's not just, the U.S. or it's not just in the Midwest. It's the entire world is experiencing this square." I will tell you that when COVID was announced transiting Saturn, like I said, 7 to 12 degrees. Pluto's 2 degrees a year. And Saturn was conjunct Pluto in Capricorn, Saturn sign, and a whole bunch of other stuff was there when COVID hit. Now, there had been many astrologers saying something's going to blow up. There's going to be a major catastrophe, in December, January of 20. I mean, we knew that the aspect was coming, but we had no idea what the effect was going to be. Well, who would have? I mean, some people said, oh, maybe it's this or maybe it's that. But believe me, you're guessing. So then Saturn came on up and began to square Uranus. Now, this year, just to show you, if I could do it quickly, I should have prepared it. We will do a year, and I'll go back and we'll turn off we'll just go to transits, and I'll just go to, well, I can even do Mars, Pluto. What I want to show you is when all this, we got to turn Mars off. That's not good. Hang on. Jupiter. See, Mars goes around too fast. It makes too many aspects. Here we go. A little difference, right? We cut out all the Mars transits, blip, the whole list went away. Let's go back to last year. Here is Saturn Uranus. So here was Saturn began to square Uranus in February this year. And then it came back and it squared it in June. Well, many people thought, and COVID did peak in January, February, this last winter. And everybody was expecting it to peak. And we're like, okay, it's going to declare itself. I had thought that by June, it might die down. Well, it did die down, and then back it came. I was hoping against hope that would, my optimism. December 24th, Saturn and Uranus will again square at 11 degrees. Aquarius, Taurus. Almost the last. However, if we go out one more year, Saturn and Uranus will be talking to each other in 2022, in September, October, a year from now. They will make one last hit in the later degrees of Leo. Now, I had hoped, this is not quite this within minutes. It's within the same degree of square, but it's not within the minutes. So, quote, you can't, it depends on how finite an astrologer you want to be, because some will say, oh, no, that's not exact. Another page, oh, it's exact to the degree it's exact. Which method are you going to pick? And that's something we learn in the school, different methods. The classicalists call it partile. If it's on the degree, it's exact. If you're on the degree, you got the and then some of the modern astrologers are no. If you're not to the degree in minute, it's not exact. Bingo. Well, we're going to find out, aren't we? Because we're observing. What we're doing is observing the universe. So coming December is this Saturn-Uranus square. Obviously, the variant is peaking, and I think we've got a pretty tough time till December. Once we get there, I'm hoping that is. Now, there's some other things to consider, and that's what people are hoping I'm going to talk about, I can assure you. So when we look at a chart, and we see Saturn at 8, so they will be at 11 degrees of their respective signs when they square. So if something else were at 11, but thank you, God, actually, none of the heavies will be at 11. None of the bigger planets will be there at that time. Now, the other thing, so this last 2 weeks have been pretty crazy. So let's talk about the planet Uranus for just a minute. The planets are all moving, right? They're moving around the sun, and they all have their different speeds, their relative speeds. And sometimes when they get farther away from the sun and they start to swing back in their orbit, it's called retrograde. They appear to be going backward. What they do is lose their place in line. Everything else is moving and they kind of slow down because they went around and took a U-turn, pulled into a parking lot and came back out. They lost their place in line. So you call it retrograde. It's apparent backward motion. Planets do not go backward. But in relationship to everything else, it appears to be going backward because it's losing its place in line. when planets are retrograde. Now, most of you have heard of Mercury retrograde. Mercury's in retrograde, oh my God, because communication goes crazy. People, you write down the phone number, you go to the wrong place, you show up in the wrong day. My schedule goes nuts. People keep changing. They show up here on the wrong time. And it's kind of a joke. We all laugh and say, well, Mercury's retrograde. What'd you expect? But I quite often will say to people, now Mercury's retrograde, so repeat back to me. What date have you written down? What time? And what's your phone number again? Because chances are something will get screwed up here. And since I know that, it's not bad. It's just people aren't paying attention. Mercury is our conscious focus, and people aren't focused. So when Mercury goes retrograde, Mercury goes retrograde approximately 3 times a year for 3 weeks. And it's in its shadow in between. So are we going to quit living because Mercury's retrograde? Of course not. And people that are alarmists and start into this, and they're like, oh my God, I can't go out, Mercury's retrograde. I'm like, really? You still have to go to work. You still have to take your phone calls. You still have to do what you have to do. Be more thoughtful about it. Pay more attention. I have to look. Huh? I didn't bring, I have it. Oh, there's an ephemeris. Hey, right there. Oh, hand it to Eric. Oh. We have ephemerises. Well, it's 3 times. It's the end of September, October, and I can show you. Is that it right there? I can open the ephemeris, but I just didn't want to do it. In our software, which, by the way, I represent the company, and I'll be doing a big presentation for one of the Internet OPA, one of the organizers. David, I called and asked me if I would do a more in-depth presentation on Sirius, the heavier duty one, next year. He didn't want to do it. Interesting. The owner of the software company. September 27th at 25 Libra, and it'll be 3 weeks. So Jennifer Evans is texting. So it's September, October, and then I think it's like January again. How do you get the volume to turn on? I cannot hear anything. Aha. Jennifer, go out and come back in. Yvonne, will you type that? What am I? She can't hear it. Oh, come on. What are you doing? What? I didn't ask it to do that. Right there? Nope. The next arrow. Right there. There. Okay, Yvonne, wait a minute. The heck is that? Oh, Yvonne is talking. Wait a minute, because my computer went crazy. How do I get the volume to turn on? There is nothing special. Go out and come back in. Yeah, that's Adobe is like Zoom, but they all have their personalities. And Adobe's working on their sound, and I had a long chat with them on Friday, and it really wasn't very nice. So I've been with them 12 years, and I'm losing my patience, which I told them. So, but we are recording. That's good news. So, what was I saying? See, Mercury. So Mercury's going retrograde the end of September, the 27th to the 16th of October. And then right around January, it'll go retrograde again. You can Google, pick up your phone, say, what are the Mercury retrograde dates? And bingo, they'll be on your phone in a heartbeat. Because everybody in God's world watches them. I just want you to understand that we don't stop living because Mercury's retrograde. Venus goes retrograde every 2 years. Mars goes retrograde every 2 years. But then when we get out, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto all go retrograde once a year for a period of time. So they're a direct part of the year. Till Jan. That's what I thought. January what? Hello. All right, we'll go to my office and talk to her. Oh, that you can put her up here. 14th of January. By the way, when people do have trouble, we just have them call the house phone, set the phone up here and there. All else fails, we fix it another way. We have more than one way, just skin a cat, you're right. Mr. Bruce is typing. So Mercury goes retrograde, not a big deal. Even Mars, not a big deal. However, you can bring her up here if you want. So why am I talking? I wanted to explain retrogrades because transiting Uranus, which does go retrograde for about 4 months a year, in the last 2 to 3 weeks has gone retrograde. Now, what happened? When the outer planets stop and, quote, stall and make that retrograde planetary, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So here's our ephemeris. Let's bring it up. Here's July. This is called an ephemeris that tells you exactly once a day where the planets are. This is how, back in the dark ages, when I did charts by hand for 30 years, we had ephemeris. I have tons of ephemerises up here and tables of houses and longitude, latitude books and all that stuff. But you would look at an ephemeris. So in August, we're like, okay, so Uranus on, when it turned red on the 20th of August, Uranus went retrograde, and it will be retrograde now through the end of the year. Let me show you. It's January. It's January. So you're like, why do you care? Well, let me tell you why you care, because we're looking at it. Yeah, we are looking at it. What has just happened in the last 2 weeks here, 3 weeks, with Uranus stationing, is that everything kind of blew up again. And the weather was crazy. The fires, Uranus, instability, electricity, the fires have gone nuts. Now we've got the whole Afghanistan thing, but Uranus and Saturn are at battle. Now it's been, like 35, 40 years before they square again, but they're in fixed signs. Now, when you study astrology and you find out that there are 4 elements, there's fire, earth, air, and water, and so 4 into 12, there's 3 signs in each one of those. However, one like fire signs, Aries, Leo, and Sag, okay, they're all fire. One's cardinal, one's fixed, and one's mutable. The cardinal signs are action-oriented. The fixed signs are the stabilizers. They don't like change. And then the mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sag, and Pisces, are changeable, flexible. Well, Taurus and Saturn and Uranus are making their square in fixed signs. So they've dug in. They're in fixed signs. They're making this 1.5 year long, 2 year long square, and they're not happy. So there's a lot of other things going on in the universe, and Pluto, which is much about, we're coming into the Aquarian Age. I mean, that Saturn-Pluto conjunction and all this Aquarian, there's no doubt that we are entering. And Uranus rules Aquarius, by the way. So, is that a good thing? Is it a good thing, a bad thing? It just is. It's a 2,100-year cycle when we change ages. And you look at the Mayan calendar behind you, if you've ever been to Mexico to Chichen Itza, which I have been, the great years are 2,100 years, 12 of them in the Mayan calendar, 26,000 year. And so the change of age has to do with that. And the precession of the equinox is on that level. So if you've ever read about the changing of the ages and Aries, and then we've been in the time of Pisces, time of Jesus, the fish, the water, love. He was the symbol of the Piscean age. He was the leader. He is who he is, but I mean, he came in under his energy. We're now moving into the Aquarian age, which is the age of, when you study, is individuality. The end of us taking responsibility for our own consciousness, our own behavior, and being forced to make our own decisions. And that's what's happening. And so this is not an easy time, and people are forced to change. Uranus demands change, but Saturn to change your structure, to change the past. And people that want to hang on to the past are in trouble. You want to survive, you better stay flexible. And Saturn Uranus are squared. And I mean, you've got two solid objects, coming at each other. And we're in it. Well, if you read metaphysics and you get online and you read all these things, I truly believe that most of us and anybody that's sitting online or in this room chose to be on the planet at this time for this plan to be here, plan to be part of the transition, to make a difference. And people are like, well, what should I do? And I'm like, just be, just hold the space and be the positive influence that you can be. These are rough times. This Saturn-Uranus square has not been pretty. I've had several people that I know pass away from this variant just recently. And they had their shots, and it's not been an easy thing. So is it real? Yes. Is it thinning the herd? I don't know. That's a strange phrase. I don't know. What I can tell you is that we're being forced to make changes and to convert to a new, even money system. We'll study in the school, we study about the United States chart, and Pluto, which has a 248-year cycle, is getting ready to return in the U.S. chart. And so it's a changing currency. Yes. Mindy just held up for me. You can bring it up here. I'll show them. I found this at some little store along the way. Of course, we had to stop in every gift shop because we had to buy a magnet and a sticker from every store for 15 states, right? And so they're not yet. But fear not. This is one of my favorite sayings of all, is fear, not fear over faith. And I mean, faith over fear, yes. Well, fear over faith is unfortunately pretty much what's happening. But faith over fear is the more positive anecdote to that. But it's Pisces, and so that leads me to Neptune, which I'll go to in a minute. But Neptune, Pisces, is idealism, universality, energy, but it's also fear. And so people who have a lot of Neptune or Pisces in their charts are really at a crossroads of faith or fear. And you can't have that. Faith and fear are two different faces of the same coin. When you have one, you can't have the other. When you have faith, you can't have fear. And when you got fear, you can't have faith. Because, one or the other is facing up. So when you find yourself in one of those holes, let me suggest to you that you stop and say to yourself, at this moment, am I in a point of faith or am I in a point of fear? And if I'm in a point of faith, and I do believe that there's divine order, then how can I, influence my immediate circle and hold space for the people that are around me? Because I am telling you that in the last 2 weeks, my phone has lit up like a Christmas tree with major crisis and people that are truly afraid. I mean, down to it. So Uranus is stationed. Now, in my world, it's because Uranus has gone, here is this electrical, changing, restless, chaotic energy, and it's stationed. And they're always at their strongest. To stations when it's going from direct to retrograde or retrograde to direct. You weren't listening. See, you were. Just making sure. Mindy wasn't paying attention in class. So
I wasn't asking for me.
Just giving her a little crap. So, because I can. So the red indicates retrogrades. Well, you see that Mercury here is not retrograde right now, but when we get up to here it goes. There was the end of September. The very end of September, you see where Mercury on the 27th goes red, right? That means it's stationing and going retrograde. So communication and maybe electrical things. For some reason, all my electrical stuff goes crazy when Mercury goes retrograde. Yes, Margaret?
That's what really made it clear.
Which one?
The lawnmower.
Oh, the lawnmower. Yes, that's one of my favorite analogies. Yes, for those of you who aren't, haven't, I try to explain to students when a planet goes to station, okay, it's moving along and it's in its path and it's got its place in line, and it's a lawnmower. It's got a lot of power, and so if you lawnmower and you bring it to a stop, and you let the blades run and you put it in neutral because you're going to go backward. What do you have to do to go backward? You have to put it in neutral and stop. But you're sitting on the, imagine these blades and all this roaring, you know, and then you put it in retrograde and away you go, right? It's during that stationing time. Imagine that lawnmower in hold, in stall, and all that energy's throwing out, and it becomes very powerful. You know, it's like, you know, set it on a hill and you got grass everywhere. So, yes, that's one of my favorite because it gives you an idea that the energy is backing up, but it's very intense when it's in station. And we have Uranus in station. Now it's going to be in, now it's moving along in September, but the last 2 weeks, and many people have had a lot of volatility. People act really weird and crazy, you know, restless, make crazy decisions. And so now it is dying down. Thank you, God. The other thing, I want to see something here. I dreamt about this last night and I didn't know the answer. Oh, there it is. The nodes, I'm going to talk about them. In January, the nodes are going to leave Gemini and go back to Taurus. Now, for those of you who haven't studied, you're like, what does that mean? I'll explain. But why? The point is, why do you care? I always try to explain to people, why do you care? We care because we don't have to maybe have studied, but if you understand what the energy is doing, you're more prepared, you make better choices, we can respond differently. And what we're responsible for is our own choices. So, Uranus is stationed. Okay, and we know that. And it's coming back, and Saturn's also in retrograde, and they're going to re-meet at 11 in December. They'll both be direct, they'll both be in fixed signs, but by then, there's going to be some stuff broken loose. We're going to see some changes for sure. Now, one other thing that I'm going to do this morning here, this evening before we quit, is talk about the current upcoming eclipses. We have a new moon and a full moon every month, but twice a year, they catch up with the nodal axis of the moon-sun's accident orbit. And so that's an eclipse. And an eclipse is 10 times more powerful than a regular new moon or full moon. And the nodes of the moon, it's actually where the moon's orbit and the sun's ecliptic cross all the time. It's where they're connected. So the energy of the moon and the sun is always connected at the nodes. It's a very spiritual axis in the personal chart. So the nodes move. They are not planets. Where the planets go from Aries and they go counterclockwise all the way through Pisces, unless they're retrograde. The nodes, because they're points, go backward. And so the nodes right now, the North Node is in Gemini at 6, and the South Node is its partner is at 6 Sag. But that's where the eclipses are in the Gemini Sagittarian quadrant. Gemini is about conscious learning, and Sagittarius is about philosophy. And so our eclipses of the last 12 of the 18 months right now are activating the mind. And so when you send back, if you want to become a philosopher, a bigger picture person, and say, what's the point? Right now, the universe is wanting us to do Gemini Sagittarian connection, thinking, behavior, use our brain. What do we know? What can we see? What can we learn? That's what Gemini Sagittarius is about. And that's where the nodes are. Now, the reason I was looking at the ephemeris is because in January, the nodes are going to move into the Taurus Scorpio pairing. That's fixed. So what is currently about change and being flexible and learning and looking at things differently and thinking differently and gathering information, Gemini Sagittarius, the nodes are coming into the Taurus Scorpio in January. And then we're going to get into, okay, what's fixed? Where are you? What are you going to do here? Are you stable? You're not stable. Have you got a plan? Have you not got a plan? So some of this flexibility that the universe is allowing right now for everybody to jump around and maybe not, and they can't make up their minds, is going to get a little more rigid come January, February. You're going to see people locking down, making decisions. This is because it's a fixed sign. We're going to see more fixity in people's behavior. It's just a fact. So I'm like, okay, so the nodes in January are moving into the fixed signs. Got it. And of course, Uranus is fixed and Saturn's in fixed. So this whole T-square, it's just going to get, we're going to know where we stand by January is what I'm going to tell you. When those nodes move, we're going to know about what the variant's doing and what people are going to do. And we're going to make a swing because there's a change in the energy coming, people. There's a change in the weather. I don't know about the government. That's a different story. Could be. It could be. Or they could change their stance, or they could change how they're formulating, or what they're doing, who's in charge of what. We may. Because right now, we are still in this state of change flexibility. We're going to grind down come January. So you just sit back and watch, and you're like, okay, well, we're still in flux. We're still immutable, but here come the nodes. What that means is that the eclipses are going to go into fixed signs. And that's the big bounces of energy that make people change. See, Saturn and Uranus are going to remain in their signs for another year and a half anyway, but not, although they'll be talking to each other, they will be past that butting head stage, They're like, yeah, I know, but I'm not doing it. So the one planet that I believe, and that's the faith or fear, is Neptune. And Neptune is in Pisces. Now, I don't have it up here. I thought maybe I did some on my other computer. I have a cheat sheet that most of you are familiar with, that just the 12 signs, and anybody gets them in class, or if they come to me, we do a reading, I give you the cheat sheet of the 12 signs and what planet rules it, and a few keywords. Neptune rules Pisces. There are 12 signs, 10 planets. Planets rule signs. Planets are the energy. Signs, how it's going to behave. Neptune is the natural ruler of Pisces and is in Pisces. Now, it's there for 13 or 14 years, so are we going to get all wigged out about that? Not normally. Neptune, it won't be back to Pisces to its own sign for 165 years, but we can go back and look at spiritual change, because Neptune really is universal consciousness and change, but it also brings high fear. And so we are at a time of how much fear is there. And people, 14 years. It's been there 10. I think we got about 4 more years left for Neptune. I think it's 2025 that it leaves and goes to Aries. And Neptune in Mindy will look, she's got an ephemeris back there. Neptune in Aries is much different than it is in Pisces. The planet has its own behavior, its own archetype, but when you put it in a sign, you're going to get different. So Neptune in Pisces can either go low or it can go high. Thus, my little sign. And when I saw it in this store, Mindy's like, did you see that? I'm like, I got to have that. There's my theme. I'm always saying to my, faith or fear. What did you choose? You're in a Neptune time. Neptune's also confusion. It's sleep. Yeah, March of 2025. About almost 4 years. It was 4 years, a few months ago, till it leaves and goes into Aries. And Neptune in Aries will be a very different 13 or 14 year transit than Neptune in Pisces has been. But what does that mean to you? We are on a spiritual journey right now. And Neptune is very, very strong. It's in its own sign. Like I said, it's only there 13, 14 years out of 165. And here we are. It is not, nothing is triggering it at this moment. But 22, well, and then you get into some numerology, but 22 is a very spiritual number if anybody's ever studied spirituality or numbers at all. Pythagoras developed our number system 1 through 9, and then 11, 22, 33, 44 are supposed to be master numbers, spiritual numbers. And of course, Neptune's on 22, which is a quote high vibration, high, very strong. In other words, a strong sound. You can hear it. So Neptune's on 24. So I think Neptune's calling us. I think Neptune's calling us. Are we going to choose faith? Are we going to choose fear? What are we doing here? So it's a theme. it's been a theme in everything that I say, but right now with Saturn square in Uranus and COVID running rapid and Afghanistan blowing up, and we just dropped a bomb outside of Kabul this morning, if you didn't hear it, which changes the picture a bit too. But it's very Uranian. What's going to happen here? Who knows? I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I know that all this is going on, and I know that it's December before, everybody decides where they stand and what they're going to do. The other thing we'll do here before we get off, now, here was Uranus does rule astrology, and how does that impact us? I believe, and astrology has had a real resurgence on the internet and through books and through in the last couple of years, because people all of a sudden are looking for higher answers. They're trying to understand the rhythm and where you fit and what's your job. And I happen to, do I want to use the word believe or no? I know that your chart is your roadmap to what your job is here. I know that. I've been at this 52 years. And by the way, I have a few other degrees and I've done a few other things. So this is not, it ain't my first rodeo. Astrology chose me. I did not choose astrology. I thought, are you kidding? I don't want to be, known as some wacky. But let me tell you that this system is real. We do have a place in the universe, and I believe that Neptune is right now calling us to find our spiritual center and decide during this Saturn Uranus how we can change and how we're going to fit in and what we're going to do to be part of the new. And are we going to sit back and watch, or are we going to, we're going to get up and do something? We do have free will. We all have, God gave us dominion over the earth. He says, you got the option, but you don't have to do anything. We have to be born, we have to die. But other than that, it's up to us. So the chart says, here's your road. Choose wisely. Well, that's what Saturn square Uranus is saying. Choose wisely. Do what you're going to do. So here is just for quickies. Here was the solar eclipse. Here it was in June. The solar eclipse, the sun and moon came together with the node in Gemini at 19. Now, this happened to have been very, very strong. Mercury was involved with it, Mercury being the planet of communication. It did trine Saturn, so there were hard decisions to be made. Saturn is a hard decider. And people that were hit by this, and some people were definitely hit by this, it changed their life. And I know a few of them. We knew that was going to hit them. We didn't know what was going to happen. But then we found out. Surprise. But it's not really a surprise, because you're like, okay, this is the universe speaking. I need to get in step. I need to do what I need to do. So that is that. Here is the next one. The lunar eclipse coming up in November it's actually going back to 27 Taurus Scorpio. That's the sign behind Gemini Sag. This is the first eclipse that we will have entering the Taurus Scorpio. This is when I think we're going to be called to make fixed Taurus Scorpio fixed decisions. What are we going to do? So I think for the last 18 months, that which you've been thinking about, you better be deciding. Because there's the eclipse opening the door to the fixed signs, saying, yoo-hoo, no more Gemini Sag, no more flexibility. So, and then the solar eclipse, they always happen within 2 weeks of each other, because it's a lunation close to the nodes. That's what it is. It's not magic. And that one is a solar eclipse in Sagittarius again with the node. So we're back. It's hitting you. Yeah. See, people that know their charts, Margaret Beck is going, oh, man, that's my chart. Yes. Oh, okay. See, once you learn your own transit, whether it's going to hit you, or are you going to sit back and say, oh, wasn't that pretty? And when people come to me, then I will give you a list saying, okay, these times, you're going to feel impact. Otherwise, you're like, that was nice. And you're like, why are you crying? Well, there's a full moon, which is emotional usually. And if it hits your moon, person's sitting around crying, they're a mess, they're emotional. And the other person's like, what? It's no big deal. Well, their chart didn't get hit, you know, so we laugh because students come in and I'm like, well, you got hit, you didn't. So there's the go. So, but the solar eclipse is in Sag. And when we go to spring, they will be Taurus, Scorpio. We will be into the fixed sign change. The last thing I want to do before we get off of here quickly is today at 11:55, Hurricane Ida had reached landfall at just east of New Orleans. And the Weather Center sent out a thing. Of course, I have to do the chart. That's what I do. So what we do in class, if there's a crisis, you're like, wow, where's the chart? Everybody comes in with their data. Did you hear that? We got the time. Yes, Katrina. That was the same day. Interesting.
But it's so much stronger than that.
This was a Cat 4, 150 miles an hour, and they had 14 to 16 storm surge, foot storm surge, which was huge. I mean, that just came right. Well, you won't be talking to them for a while. So here was the chart at 11:55. So I had to run the chart. What I was looking for and what I find over and over. Uranus, we talked a lot. All these planets have to. Now, Neptune is rain. I mean, Neptune is water. Neptune rules the sea. This is about Uranus, the wind, the chaos, the whirlwind, Uranus, the energy. And there it sits right on an angle. These four angles, 1, 4, 7, and 10, are the major angles in the chart. And I have to tell you that when Katrina hit, Uranus was on one of the angles. When it hit landfall, when it actually, got around to it, bingo. And those are the big ones. When they come on land, and so there is the chart and there sits Uranus, the grand whirlwind. And this is it's traumatic, and it surprised them. Even though they knew, they really didn't. Uranus is surprised. There it was. Unexpected. It was bigger than they thought and it hit harder than they thought and blah, blah, blah. So there you go. But there it is. But that is the chart of Ida, and it'll be interesting to track it. Although I have to tell you that Scorpio is rising and Scorpio is a fixed sign. And it's going to take it a while to work its way over the earth. Because it's a fixed sign, they don't move as fast. If it would have been a mutable sign, it would have dissipated quickly. If it was a cardinal sign, it would have come across and up and been gone. But the fixed sign says, I'm going to grind this out. We will see it here. We will see it here. The moon does affect. The moon's on the north node. Well, Annie Shabata's typing to see what she's got. She taught astrology for a long time. I don't think she is now. What you got, Annie? Oh, wait a minute. I have to scroll down. I didn't. Oh, we had stuff going on all the time. Sorry. Oh, outer planets are Yes, Bruce said all the outer planets are retrograde right now, which really is. Everybody's having to dig in. Let's see, and with Uranus in fixed Earth, they are predicting power outages and ongoing issues for months. Uranus is in Taurus, it's fixed, but if you look at the chart, it reached landfall with a fixed sign on the ascendant, which just says, slower, longer, deeper. And so we will see a longer term reaction to this than we would have if it would have come in at a different time. Events have charts. And I started to do the chart of Afghanistan, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. 9/11 this year. Oh, the 20th anniversary. So we have one last request before we get off of here. So the quest is the U.S. 9-11. So we will go to 09/11/2021. We'll just do noon. When in doubt, you do noon because it's halfway through the day, and we'll do Washington, D.C. Why do you do Washington, D.C.? When you do a mundane chart, the rule is that you do it for the capital of the country. Because, you know, for us, it's going to be, for all of us, that's our capital. If you wanted to know about Italy, you'd put it in Rome. I mean, that's just the way, that's the rule of mundane. And we can save it. Well, the moon's on the opposite at noon, but the houses go by the time of day. It's where the planets are energetically. We were talking about, somebody was talking about the moon in that hurricane chart. The moon rules water, but the moon rules emotion. And the moon is significant with these major storms because our body is about 75% water, and so is Earth. And the moon has the ability to create all the tides. And so at full moons, the tides are higher. All weather people know that, and they discuss it. You know, here comes a full moon. They hate it when a storm makes landfall on a full moon because you're going to have twice the surge. You know, because the moon, if the moon can move the oceans and change our water flow, and we're the same amount of water, what do you think it can do to us? And why people don't think that they're similar, it just blows my mind. I'm like, where is your logic, you know? But that's my statistical crap that I get into. I'm like, Neptune's at 1. Neptune will be opposed to the sun. Yeah, and Mars is not. It's at 27. Mars right now, even. Right. But they're sextile trine. I'm not worried about that, quite frankly. Hurricane Ida today. Let's talk about Mars before we go. Mars being the aggressor. Mars is the warrior. He's the front runner. He's the pioneer. He's first. He's the fire god. You know, I want to be first. So anybody that has a strong Mars, they have strong physical energy. They move fast. They think fast because Mars is fast, right? He goes flying across the sky in his fire chariot. But Mars is in Virgo, a fire planet in an earth sign. You know what? Mars will not oppose Neptune for about 5 days. So we're going to have lots more water in the next 5 to 6 days, I can tell you. Once Mars clears Neptune, the ruler of water, you know, it'll be better. So as Annie said, they are expecting, because Uranus is so strong, expecting power electrical is Uranus. So what I'd like to leave you with is that, No, Neptune. It's not 5-6 days. If Mars, because Mars moves faster than Neptune, and Mars is lesser degrees. So we've got 6 days of Mars approaching Neptune, which is going to keep pushing the water. You know, we've got Mars. We will feel them here, I'll bet you. I didn't put the Cincinnati in here. But Mars is coming, because Mars is only at 19 and it's got to get to 22. And it only moves a half a degree a day. That's about 6 days. Do the math. Mars is opposing Neptune. So I'm just telling you that we are going to have this water surge for the next 5 to 6 days. That's unfortunate.
Well, I was thinking of power. A large part of what's protecting is the ability to pump out the water from the weather.
The water to pump, the ability with electricity to pump out the water. And let us hope that they, well, and that's what I think Annie Shibata was saying, is with Uranus there, are we going to have electrical outages? Therefore, we're going to have bigger water issues. That'll kind of take our attention off of overseas, won't it? Because we're going to have our own catastrophe right back here at home. There is a U.S. chart. But look, what I want to leave you with is Neptune is in Pisces now. And as we know, we got another 4 years. But let us try to stand back and observe and stay in a spiritual place and say, what can we do to be helpful? You know, what can we do to keep other people calm? How can we contribute? Because those are the only choices we have, is how we're going to act and react. That's really it. So, and I thought about this long and hard last night. I thought, what is my real message between now and Christmas? And that it's, we still have the Saturn Uranus coming in December, you know, the pressure's not going to let up. This storm is a part of that. Afghanistan is a part of that. We've got 3 more months of this insanity. Let us not be part of the problem. Let us be part of the solution. I wish that I could say, oh, I think this will be over next month, but I don't. So I'm like, buckle up, kids. But don't make it worse. And he said, thanks for always holding the light of truth. Well, we do have to, those of us who are conscious enough to be aware of what's really happening have a responsibility not to wig out. To try to stay calm, to try to be as positive as we can. It's easy to get angry and frustrated and, you know, hide. And fear is, everybody has it. How much are you going to feed it, you know? How much do you want to feed the lion? I don't know. So when you go to fear, try to go to faith. So, because that's Neptune's message. And Neptune's a 22 now. It's on a very, very powerful spiritual master degree. And let's hope that we can do it. We do have 6 more days of Mars Neptune. That certainly isn't going to help the fires either. But this is, look at the view, guys, for you as astrologers. Look at the nodes at 6 and the sun came up to square it. Bingo. Sun hit 6, hit the nodes, cross point, you know. So got it real intense. That sun moves a degree a day. And the nodes are at 6 for a month. But the sun just rolled up to 6 and made an exact square to the nodes. And here we are. Okay, so any other comments out there before anybody from in here? Anybody got anything they want to ask or say or comment? What about you guys out there? My buddies are out there. Nice to meet you, Jennifer.
She's a new student.
She's a new student. Where is she living? Where are you, Jennifer?
Outside of in Indiana. And
oh, Granger. Okay, right. Right, you can drive over here. Well, occasionally.
For the weekend.
Notre Dame, got it.
Fort Wayne.
Fort Wayne. Have a graduate from Fort Wayne who comes Thursday night. She's still in Thursday night class, Elaine. Yes. Well, welcome. And we'll get your sound fixed somehow. We'll keep going. We'll keep working with you, Mindy will. I won't, Mindy. No, you'll keep going in and out until we get it fixed, okay? Has anybody else out there got anything to say? Teresa's on there somewhere. I think we're good. All righty. I'm going to turn off the recordings. I'm going to say thank you for coming. I'm going to discuss, I'm going to leave this off the computer on and we'll talk about school here in a minute. Let everybody, Jennifer, you can stay on. I'll leave you on the phone. Yeah, I'm going to talk about school, but I don't think there's anybody else out here that's going to school, is there? I think they're already in school. Huh? I don't think so. He comes on because he and Bruce are best friends. Okay. Thank you, guys. We will post this. I will turn this
We'll be
on.
back right at 6.